Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're actually going to do something a little dangerous.
Who are we?
Yeah, we are.
Mhm.
We're going to take away your favorite security blanket. You know the one I'm talking about. It's warm, it's fuzzy, and it whispers in your ear that none of your language learning struggles are your fault.
You're talking about the plane ticket myth.
I am. And look, I'll be the first to admit I'm guilty of it. We all are. It's that little voice that says, um, I can't really be fluent in English because I live in Tokyo, or I'll never get that crisp accent because I'm stuck in Sao Paulo, not London.
Right. It's the belief that fluency is this exclusive prize reserved for people who have the money or the luck to just pack up and move across the ocean.
Exactly.
It's a very convenient narrative, isn't it? Because, if fluency requires a plane ticket and you don't have one, then your failure isn't a lack of effort. It's just geography. You can just attribute your struggle to the map.
Exactly. It's not me, it's my zip code. But the source material we are tearing into today, this guide on creating a linguistic sanctuary, it basically says that excuse is dead. It's a total fossil.
It really is. The core argument here is that in the age of the internet, we simply must concede that the geography excuse is completely invalid. If you have a Wi-Fi connection, you have a plane ticket.
Yeah.
The source calls for this massive shift in perspective. You have to replace the idea of going to a country with building a country right in your bedroom.
And that is what we're calling the linguistic sanctuary. It sounds almost, I don't know, spiritual, like a monk's cell or something.
Yeah.
But it's actually about what the text calls digital engineering.
Right. It's about hacking your environment. And the mission for this deep dive is to break down exactly how you do that. We're going to look at how to audit your psychological foundation, which is way scarier than it sounds, how to basically weaponize your smartphone, and how to prove that immersion is a lifestyle choice, not a travel itinerary.
I love that phrase, weaponize your smartphone. But before we get to the gadgets, we have to start with the brain work. The source opens with this step called auditing the psychological foundation. And honestly, reading this part felt a little bit like being called into the principal's office.
Oh, it is a harsh reality check. The text asks you to do this brutal calculation. It literally wants you to calculate the actual difference between the time you spend worrying about English versus the time you spend actually engaging with it.
That is a painful distinction. Because if I'm being honest, I think a lot of learners spend hours researching the best app or how to learn fast or, watching videos about grammar. But they spend very little time actually suffering through the language itself.
Yeah, that's what we call the passive trap. You feel productive because you're thinking about the language. But the audit reveals that most learners actively avoid the difficult tasks.
Right.
They stay in the comfort zone. They stick to apps they've already mastered or conversations they've perfectly rehearsed in their heads. The guide implies that if you actually want to move the needle, you have to augment the intensity of your daily exposure.
Augment is a great keyword there. It means to make something greater by adding to it. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Most people listening have jobs, kids, brutal commutes.
Sure.
If you tell them to augment intensity, they hear, oh, great, I need to find 4 more hours in my day. And they just check out because they don't have 4 hours.
Totally fair objection. But the source counters that perfectly. It's not about finding new hours. It's about utilizing what we call net dead time. It's those invisible pockets of time you already have, waiting for the kettle to boil, standing in line at the grocery store, just walking to the mailbox.
But here's the thing. We tend to belittle those moments. We think, oh, it's only 3 minutes. That won't make a difference.
Exactly. We belittle them. We treat them as insignificant. But the expert view here is that these micro habits are the actual glue. They bind your skills together. Think about it. If you only study once a week for 3 hours, your brain basically resets in between.
It's a binge and purge model.
Spot on. But if you do 5 minutes, 20 times a day, you are keeping the engine running constantly.
So it's about frequency, not just duration. Okay, but let's say we do that. We start engaging, then we hit the next wall mentioned in the text. You step out of the textbook, you turn on a real native conversation, and
Chaos.
absolute chaos. You don't understand half of it?
Welcome to the bafflement phase.
Yeah. The text explicitly says, do not let your current low level baffle you. But being baffled, being totally perplexed and confused, is a really uncomfortable state for adults. We like to feel competent, and when we don't, we panic.
We do. We panic and we quit. But the source offers this reframing here that I think is brilliant. It suggests that confusion isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're actually in the arena. Every expert you admire, every fluent speaker, was once a beginner who simply refused to cease their efforts.
They just didn't stop.
Exactly. They didn't cease. They didn't bring the process to an end just because they felt stupid for a month. The only difference between a master and a quitter is that the master tolerated the bafflement longer.
I really like that. Embrace the confusion. It just means you're learning. Okay, so we've audited our minds. We're ready to feel stupid. Now let's get practical. Segment 2 is digital re-engineering. This is where the smartphone comes in.
The smartphone is the absolute battleground. The text is very stark about this. It says your phone is either a tool or a trap. If you continue to use it in your native tongue for 90% of your day, you betray your own goals.
Betray is such a heavy word. It implies, like, serious disloyalty, like you're cheating on your future fluent self with Instagram.
It feels heavy, but it's totally accurate. Think about it. You say you want to learn English, but the device you look at 50 times a day is reinforcing your native language. So the first actionable step, and this is the one that scares people the most, is the OS switch.
Oh boy.
You need to classify your digital habits and then switch your operating system to English immediately.
I have to admit, I've heard this advice before, and I always hesitate. There is this genuine fear that I'm going to get lost in my settings menu or somehow delete all my photos by accident because I don't know the word for backup. It feels really risky.
And that friction, that cognitive friction, is exactly where the learning happens. The author really shares a great personal anecdote here. They said, "Scarcely had I changed my settings when I realized how many new technical terms I could learn effortlessly." You learn words like privacy, notifications, storage, location access, and not because you studied a flashcard.
Because you needed to turn off a buzzing sound.
Exactly. It's survival vocabulary. You learn it because you have to navigate your world.
That makes sense. It sticks in a way that textbook lists just never will.
Precisely. But the digital reengineering goes way deeper than just the settings menu. It's about the content you consume. The guide says you must compile a list of resources that actually captivate you.
Captivate. That is the key distinction, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of learners subscribe to these learning channels, Slow News in English or Grammar with Bob. And honestly, it's boring.
It is incredibly boring, and your brain hates boring. It tunes it out completely. To captivate means to hold interest irresistibly. The advice here is to decouple the language part from the content part. If you're a physics nerd, don't watch English grammar videos. Watch Neil deGrasse Tyson explaining astrophysics in English.
Or if you love cooking, watch Gordon Ramsay yelling at people in the kitchen.
Yes. Watching Gordon Ramsay have a complete meltdown over raw scallops is universally captivating.
And highly educational. There is a lot of very specific vocabulary in there.
Well, maybe some vocabulary you shouldn't use in a polite business meeting. But the point stands. When you do that, you achieve what the text calls the blend. You blend your hobby with your target language. You aren't studying English anymore. You're learning how to make a beef Wellington.
The English is just the delivery mechanism.
Exactly. And this naturally boosts motivation because the reward isn't, oh, I learned a new word. The reward is, I really enjoyed that video.
That's the absolute dream, where it doesn't even feel like work. But let's be real, there are still massive hurdles. And the biggest one mentioned in the next segment of the source is navigating the auditory landscape. Specifically, the speed.
Oh, speed is the killer. Native speech speed can challenge even the most dedicated students. It instantly calls your skills into question. You think you know the language, and then you hear two native speakers talking fast on a podcast, and you feel like you know absolutely nothing.
So what's the fix? Do we just slow it down to 0.75 speed on YouTube?
No, the source takes a much harder line here. It says you must comply with the necessity of immersion. You have to act in accordance with reality. Natives are not going to slow down for you in the real world. So the strategy they propose is the commute strategy.
Right. Whether you commute to school or work traveling that distance every day, your ears should just be filled with English. It's about reclaiming that dead time we talked about.
Exactly. But here is the emotional warning the text gives, and this is so important. Do not try to conceal your struggles, and do not collapse in frustration.
Collapse is a really vivid word there. Like, don't just break down and give up. I think we've all been there. You listen for 5 minutes, you get totally lost, you feel stupid, and you just want to curl up and switch back to your favorite music.
That is the collapse. The expert advice is to lean right into that difficulty. Use it as a diagnostic tool to clarify your weak points. If you didn't understand a sentence, ask yourself why. Was it a vocabulary word you didn't know? Was it slang? Was it the way the words link together? That confusion isn't failure, it's data.
So instead of getting emotional about not understanding, we get analytical.
Exactly. And the promise here is that with persistence, you will eventually breeze through conversations that once seemed literally impossible. To breeze means to move through something quickly, easily, and relaxed. But you only get to the breeze if you survive the storm first.
That is highly encouraging. But to get there, we need to talk about the absolute weirdest part of this advice. Segment 4 is the social and cognitive shift. And I have to say, this part requires you to look a little bit crazy.
Oh, the crazy person method. I love this part. This touches on exactly how we motivate our brains. The text argues you cannot coerce your brain into fluency through fear. You can't force it with threats or stress. You must compel it through interest.
And then it drops this tactic, talking to yourself.
Yes. It suggests you should canvas your own thoughts in a foreign language.
Now, usually when I hear the word canvas, I think of politicians knocking on doors asking for votes.
Right, that's one common meaning. But here it means to examine in detail or discuss. It means having an ongoing dialogue with your own mind. In English, you're walking down the street, and instead of just thinking quietly, you describe what you see out loud. That car is red. It looks like it's going to rain. I need to buy milk.
It feels incredibly awkward. I mean, if anyone catches you muttering, "the sky is blue" to yourself in the grocery store, they're going to cross the street.
They might. But why is it so effective? Because it exposes your knowledge gaps immediately. You might think you know English pretty well, but try to describe your kitchen in intricate detail right now. You'll suddenly realize, wait, I don't know the word for spatula or drain or grout. You wouldn't even realize you lacked that word if you weren't actively trying to say it.
That is a massive light bulb moment.
Mm-hmm.
We completely overestimate our vocabulary because we mostly consume passive content. When we have to generate it ourselves, the holes suddenly appear.
Exactly. But we resist doing this because we cling to our native language. We hold on so tightly to it because it feels safe. It's our ultimate safety blanket. We fear making mistakes. But the text is very, very firm on this. Mistakes are simply the price of growth.
And what about the loneliness factor? Because a lot of people will say, I can't practice speaking because I don't have a partner. I live in a small town. There are no native speakers here.
The guide addresses that directly. It says if you lack speaking partners, you must compensate. You have to give something in recognition of that loss. You compensate by increasing your efforts elsewhere. Or, and I think this is a fantastic tip, using voice-to-text apps.
Oh, like the dictation feature on your phone.
Yes. Use the robot in your pocket, open your Notes app, switch the keyboard to English, and just speak. If Siri or Google understands you, your pronunciation is functional. If it types total gibberish, you know you need to work on your enunciation. It's a ruthless feedback loop, but it's totally free and available 24/7.
That is a brilliant way to compensate. It completely removes the social anxiety, but keeps the technical practice intact.
And it really reinforces the overall mindset. Never let a temporary setback like Siri not understanding your accent today lead you to conclude that you aren't capable. Don't arrive at that final negative judgment just because of one bad day.
Okay, so we've covered the psychology, the phone settings, the listening strategies, and the talking to yourself like a crazy person. Now, I want to do something a little different as we start wrapping up. The text actually provides a very specific vocabulary review to ensure we're living this linguistic sanctuary lifestyle.
Right.
I want to run through these rapid fires with me, but instead of just defining them like a textbook, I want us to frame them as the manifesto of the sanctuary.
I really like that idea. Let's run through them. These are basically the pillars of the lifestyle.
Okay, pillar 1, attribute.
Do not attribute your mistakes to a lack of talent. Attribute them to a lack of exposure. You have to shift the blame from your brain over to your habits.
Pillar 2, avoid.
Avoid the path of least resistance. Specifically, avoid using subtitles in your native language. That is a crutch. If you want to fly, you have to take the training wheels off.
Pillar 3, benefit.
Remember that you benefit. You receive a massive advantage from the global community. You might be sitting in a room alone, but online, you are part of a massive ecosystem. Use the forums, use the comments sections. You aren't actually alone in your sanctuary.
Pillar 4, betray. We touched on this earlier, but it bears repeating.
Do not betray your future self by being lazy today. Every single time you switch your phone back to your native language just because you're tired, you are breaking a promise to the person you want to become.
Pillar 5, broaden.
You must broaden your inputs. Don't just read the news. Read fiction, read recipes, read tech manuals, read internet memes. If your input is narrow, your vocabulary will be narrow.
Pillar 6, Clarify.
Actively seek to clarify your confusion. Don't just let a confusing grammar rule sit there in your brain. Use AI, use a dictionary, ask a forum. Resolve the ambiguity immediately.
And finally, pillar 7, cling.
Or rather, do not cling. Do not cling to the dictionary for every single word you don't know. Learn to tolerate the ambiguity. Guess the meaning from the context around it. Letting go of that safety line is exactly how you learn to swim.
That is a powerful list. It really shows that this isn't just about memorizing vocabulary lists. It's about how you approach the world around you. It's proactive, it's brave, and it requires a lot of discipline.
Absolutely. If we zoom out and look at the big picture, what we're seeing here is a complete dismantling of the old way of thinking. The source says the old system of learning will eventually collapse as we integrate these new methods. The idea of going to a language class twice a week is collapsing in favor of simply living in the language 24/7.
It's highly empowering, but it also puts all the responsibility squarely on our shoulders. We literally cannot blame the lack of a plane ticket anymore.
No, we really can't. We can conclude, we can arrive at the firm judgment that digital immersion is the most efficient path. And for the first time in human history, it is completely democratized. It isn't about where your physical body is located anymore. It's entirely about where your brain is.
So here's a challenge for you listening right now. The source ends with a very specific task, and we want you to try it. We want you to challenge yourself to write a quick summary of what you just heard in this deep dive.
But here is the catch. Do it in English, do it without looking up any words, and do it without stopping to correct yourself. Just let it flow. See what actually stuck. See what you can canvas from your own memory right now.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be produced by you. It is officially time to stop looking for the plane ticket. The sanctuary is right there in your pocket. Switch your settings, find a physicist or a chef to watch on YouTube, and start muttering to yourself in the shower.
It's a brave new world. Go build your circle.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.